Picture an ordinary morning, the kind where standing up takes a little longer than it used to, and a familiar ache greets you before your first cup of tea. This is the quiet, unspoken reality of aging that rarely gets discussed with any real depth. Welcome to Mindfulness, where we bring genuine attention to exactly these moments. In today's video, we're exploring 8 practices grounded in traditional Buddhist teaching, each designed to help you meet physical change and chronic pain after 60 with steadiness rather than resistance. We'll look at impermanence, attention, kindness, and a deeper understanding of the self, all explained clearly, without exaggeration or invented wisdom. Just teachings that have quietly helped people through this exact stage of life for a very long time. 1. Seeing the body as it truly is. The first practice begins with something simple, almost too simple to notice. It begins with truly seeing the body as it actually is, rather than as we wish it were. In Buddhist teaching, this is part of a wider understanding called anicca, impermanence. Everything that has a beginning has a middle and an end. A leaf, a flame, a friendship, a body. This isn't a punishment aimed at you personally. It is simply how conditioned things behave. They arise, they change, they pass. Your body at 60 or 70 or 80 is not a broken version of your body at 30. It is simply your body continuing to do what bodies have always done, moving through its natural stages, the way a river moves through a valley, the way a season turns into the next one without asking permission. Much of our suffering around aging doesn't come from the aging itself. It comes from the quiet argument we have with reality, the part of the mind that insists things should have stayed the same. Buddhist practice invites something different, not denial, not forced positivity, but honest seeing, looking at a stiff knee, a slower pace, a changed reflection, and simply naming what is true. This is what is happening now, not fighting it. Not decorating it with fear, just seeing it clearly, the way you might watch clouds change shape without needing them to stop. This kind of seeing is a practice, not a one-time realization. Each morning offers a small chance to notice the body honestly, without the layer of disappointment we often add on top. When you catch yourself resisting what is simply true, pause, breathe, let the seeing be enough. This is the ground the other 7 practices will be built on. 2. Meeting pain without multiplying it. The second practice speaks directly to chronic pain, and it is one of the most practical teachings the Buddha ever offered. He taught that when discomfort arises in the body, something ordinary happens first. A sensation appears. Tightness, throbbing, burning, ache. This is simply the body communicating the way it always has. But almost immediately, something else tends to happen. The mind reacts to that sensation with fear, frustration, dread of tomorrow, memories of how the body used to feel. This second layer isn't the pain itself, it is what gets added to the pain, and it is often heavier than the sensation that started it. This distinction matters enormously for those living with long-term physical pain. The ache in a joint may not disappear. Buddhist teaching doesn't promise that it will. But the suffering that surrounds it, the dread, the self-pity, the constant mental replay, that layer can soften with practice, even when the physical sensation remains. This is not about pretending pain isn't real. It is about noticing where the body's signal ends and the mind's story begins. A simple way to practice this is to pause when discomfort arises and ask quietly, what is the sensation itself? Separate from what I am telling myself about it. Often you'll find the raw sensation is more workable than the fear wrapped around it. This doesn't remove pain from your life, but it can remove some of the exhausting weight that gets carried alongside it, freeing a little energy for rest, for ease, for simply being present in the body you have today. It can help to notice how quickly the mind moves from sensation to story. A single twinge in the back can, within seconds, become a whole narrative about decline, about limitation, about a future imagined in worst-case detail. None of that has happened yet. It is thought layered on top of feeling. Buddhist practice doesn't ask you to silence this tendency through force. It simply asks you to notice it happening, gently, the same way you might notice weather passing overhead. With repetition, that noticing itself becomes a kind of relief, separate from whether the physical sensation changes at all. 3. Making friends with the body through attention. The third practice is a form of meditation with a long history in Buddhist tradition, sometimes described as mindfulness of the body. Rather than escaping the body when it becomes uncomfortable, this practice asks us to turn toward it gently, with attention rather than judgment. It might sound difficult, especially if your body has become a source of frustration. But the intention isn't to analyze or criticize. It is closer to how you might sit beside an old friend who is struggling, offering quiet company rather than advice. In practice, this can be as simple as sitting comfortably and slowly moving your attention through different parts of the body, the feet, the legs, the hands, the shoulders, the face, noticing sensation without needing to change it. Where there is tension, you simply notice tension. Where there is ease, you notice ease. Where there is pain, you allow your attention to rest near it, without pushing it away, and without leaning into distress about it. Over time, this kind of attention changes the relationship between you and your body. Instead of the body being an obstacle you carry through the day, it becomes something you are quietly accompanying, moment by moment. Many long-term practitioners describe this shift not as pain disappearing, but as a new kind of closeness with the body, an ability to be with it rather than constantly at war with it. This practice asks for patience. Some days the body will be easier to sit with than others. That too is simply part of being with what is real. You don't need long stretches of time for this practice to matter. Even a few quiet minutes, seated or lying down, spent simply noticing what the body is reporting, can begin to soften the habitual bracing many of us carry without realizing it. Some traditional teachers describe the body itself as a kind of teacher, constantly offering information about the present moment if we're willing to listen rather than argue. Approached this way, a difficult body becomes less of an enemy to defeat and more of a companion asking, quite simply, to be noticed with care. 4. Loosening the grip of who you think you are. The fourth practice touches something deeper, a teaching in Buddhism known as anatta, often translated as non-self. This teaching doesn't mean you don't exist. It means that the fixed, unchanging self we often assume we are, the self that should always look a certain way, move a certain way, feel a certain way, was never quite as solid as it seemed. We build an identity around being capable, independent, quick, strong. When the body changes, that identity can feel like it's cracking. Buddhist teaching offers a gentler way to hold this. If you are not simply your body and not simply your habits or your former abilities, then the changes in your body, while real and sometimes difficult, are not a verdict on who you are. A body that moves more slowly is not a lesser person. Hands that shake are not a diminished self. This teaching isn't asking you to detach from your body or stop caring for it. It's asking you to loosen your grip on the idea that your worth was ever located in its strength or speed to begin with. This can be a quiet relief. So much suffering around aging comes from comparing this year's body to last year's, or this decade's life to an earlier one. When you soften the belief that you must remain exactly who you were to still be fully yourself, something in the chest often loosens too. You are allowed to change. You are always going to change. This has never disqualified you from being whole. In traditional teaching, the aggregates that make up a person, form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness, are described as constantly shifting, never fixed for even a single moment. This isn't a bleak idea once it's understood correctly. It means the version of you that struggled yesterday is not sealed in place forever, and the version of you meeting today's difficulty is not permanently defined by it either. Selfhood in this understanding is far more like a flowing process than a solid object. There is genuine freedom available in that flow if we're willing to stop gripping so tightly to a single fixed picture of who we're supposed to be. 5. Offering kindness to the body you live in now. The fifth practice comes from a teaching called metta, usually translated as loving kindness. In many communities, this practice is offered outward, toward others, toward the world. But it can also be turned quietly inward, toward the very body that is aging, aching, changing beneath you. For many people, this direction is harder than it sounds. It is often easier to feel warmth toward a stranger than toward a knee that no longer bends the way it used to. The practice is simple in form, though not always simple in feeling. Sitting quietly, you silently offer a few phrases toward your own body. May you be at ease. May you be free from unnecessary suffering. May you be held gently, even in your changes. These aren't magic words, and they won't erase discomfort. But repeated with sincerity, they begin to shift something subtle, the tone in which you relate to your own body day to day. Many older practitioners describe years of quiet hostility toward their changing bodies, frustration at their slowness, embarrassment at their limitations. This practice offers an alternative relationship, not one of denial, but one of tenderness. Your body has carried you through decades of a difficult and beautiful life. It has earned some gentleness in return. Offering that kindness doesn't require the pain to disappear first. It can be offered exactly as things are, right now, today, without waiting for improvement. You might notice when you first try this, a kind of resistance, a voice insisting the body doesn't deserve kindness until it improves, or behaves better, or causes less trouble. This resistance itself is worth noticing without judgment. It's simply an old habit of conditional care, the belief that love must be earned through performance. Loving kindness practice gently questions that belief. It suggests that care can be offered simply because a being, in this case your own body, is present and experiencing difficulty with no other qualification required. Practiced regularly, even a few minutes a day, this small shift in inner tone can soften decades of quiet self-criticism into something closer to companionship. 6. resting in steadiness when things are uncertain. The sixth practice draws on a quality called upekkha, often translated as equanimity. This is not the same as indifference, and it is not about suppressing feeling. Equanimity is closer to steadiness, the capacity to remain present and balanced even while circumstances shift beneath you. For someone living with unpredictable pain, or a body whose abilities change from week to week, this steadiness can become one of the most valuable resources available. Rather than bracing for good days and dreading bad ones, equanimity invites a different posture. Some days will be easier, some days will be harder. Both are simply part of this stage of life, not evidence that something has gone wrong. This isn't resignation. It is closer to the steadiness of someone who has weathered enough seasons to know that weather changes and that their footing doesn't have to change with it. Cultivating this quality often begins with breath. When a difficult day arrives, pausing to breathe slowly, acknowledging the difficulty honestly rather than being swept into panic about what it means for tomorrow. Equanimity doesn't ask you to pretend hard days are easy. It asks you to meet them without adding an extra layer of alarm on top. Over time, this steadiness becomes less something you do and more something you simply are, a quiet floor beneath the shifting weather of a changing body. Traditional teaching describes equanimity as one of 4 qualities meant to be cultivated together, alongside loving kindness, compassion, and a capacity for shared joy in the good fortune of others. None of these 4 are meant to stand alone. Equanimity without warmth can harden into coldness, while warmth without equanimity can collapse into being overwhelmed by every difficulty that arises. Held together, they offer something sturdier, a way of caring deeply about your circumstances while remaining unshaken by their constant movement. This balance tends to develop slowly through ordinary repeated moments rather than through a single breakthrough. Each time you meet a hard morning without adding panic on top of it, that quiet strength grows a little more available for the next one. 7. What the Buddha saw when he left the palace. The 7th practice comes from one of the oldest stories in the Buddhist tradition, the account of the young man who would become the Buddha before his awakening. According to traditional accounts, he was raised in comfort, shielded for years from the harder realities of life. When he finally left the palace grounds, he encountered, for what tradition says was the first time, an old man bent with age, a person suffering from illness, and a corpse being carried for burial. These encounters are described as deeply unsettling to him, not because he hadn't known intellectually that people age and die, but because he had never truly let it touch him. What matters for us today isn't simply that this story happened, it's what he did with it. Rather than turning away in fear, as many of us are trained to do, he turned toward these realities directly. He didn't look away from aging, he looked at it fully, and that honest looking became part of what led him toward a life of deep spiritual seeking. Traditional accounts describe this as one of the turning points that shaped his eventual path. There is something instructive here for those of us actually living inside aging and chronic pain rather than observing it from a distance. We are not required to look away from our own condition either. We are not required to pretend our bodies are fine, or perform wellness we don't feel, or hide our slower pace from a world uncomfortable with it. The tradition suggests that some of the deepest wisdom becomes available precisely when we stop turning away from what is difficult and start looking directly at it. Your aching knees, your slower mornings, your changed reflection. These are not distractions from a meaningful life. In Buddhist understanding, they can become part of the very material through which wisdom develops, if we're willing to look honestly rather than flinch away. This isn't a suggestion to romanticize pain or pretend suffering is secretly a gift. It is simply a reminder that generations of practitioners have found that facing aging directly, rather than avoiding it, tends to lead toward more peace, not less. There's a quiet irony worth sitting with here. A culture built entirely around comfort had shielded that young man from reality for years, and it left him unprepared, even frightened, the moment reality finally reached him. Many of us live inside a similar shielding today, surrounded by messaging that treats aging as something to conceal or defeat, rather than something to understand. The traditional account suggests a different route entirely, one where looking honestly at what most people look away from becomes the very beginning of wisdom, rather than something to be feared and postponed for as long as possible. 8. What remains when the body changes? The eighth and final practice concerns how we use the time and energy we still have, in whatever form that takes. Buddhist tradition places great value on generosity, known as dana, not as an obligation, but as a natural expression of a settled mind. As the body slows, many people assume their capacity to give has shrunk along with their physical strength. But generosity was never only about physical action. A patient ear, an honest word, a small kindness offered to someone younger and anxious about their own future. These carry real weight, regardless of how quickly your body moves. There is a well-documented teaching, spoken near the end of the Buddha's own life, as he prepared his students for his passing. He reminded them plainly that all conditioned things are subject to change and decay, and he encouraged them to continue their practice with diligence and care. This wasn't offered as something sorrowful, it was offered as clarity, a final honest reminder that impermanence touches every teacher, every student, every body that has ever lived without exception. Even the most awakened being who ever lived did not escape aging, illness, or death. He met all three directly and taught from within them until his final breath. This can be, oddly, a source of real comfort. You are not failing at some task that others have completed successfully. No one gets to keep their body exactly as it was. The question the tradition leaves us with isn't how to stop this process, because that was never available to anyone. The question is how to meet it with honesty instead of denial, with kindness instead of hostility, with steadiness instead of panic. There is also something worth noting about how this teaching was delivered. It wasn't hidden until the very end, saved as some dramatic final secret. It was consistent with everything taught throughout an entire lifetime, a steady, repeated invitation to look at change honestly rather than resist it. The same is available to you, not as a single dramatic realization, but as a quiet, repeated practice across ordinary days. A slower walk, a softer grip on how things used to be. A little more generosity toward yourself and toward those around you, offered simply because you're still here to offer it. What remains, even as the body changes, is the quality of attention you bring to each day you're given. That part is still entirely yours to shape, today and tomorrow, for as long as you're here. These 8 practices won't undo a single year or remove every ache from your body. That was never their purpose. What they offer instead is a different way to carry what's already true, with less resistance and more honesty. If even one idea here gave you something to sit with today, consider subscribing for more teachings like this and share which practice spoke to you most in the comments below. May you be at ease exactly as you are.